Forget about Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates. Yep, I said it. Compared to this upcoming list of the wealthiest people throughout history, today's richest men are average Joes compared to these billionaires and trillionaires. That's right, we said trillionaires. Welcome to Every Trend. Today, we're bringing you the top 10 wealthiest people throughout history. Keep watching all the way to number 1 for one person so astronomically wealthy that he destroyed an entire city's economy. We're going to start off this list of big ballers with Osman Ali Khan, sitting at a whopping $210 billion. For a big chunk of the 20th century, Mir Osman Ali Khan, the last ruler of the princely state in Hyderabad in India, before it was annexed, had more wealth to his name than anyone could ever imagine. Even Time magazine featured him on their 1937 cover as the world's wealthiest person. In today's money, it's believed he had a net worth between $210 to $230 billion, about 2% of the U.S. economy. Just to give you an example of how unfathomably rich he was, this ruler would use the Jacob diamond, which is the 5th largest diamond in the world, as a paperweight. In fact, his entire jewelry collection was something to marvel at, worth over $2 billion alone. And believe it or not, he still knit his own socks. An eccentric man to the end of his days, other than using priceless jewelry as common household items, he would borrow cigarettes from guests and compose poetry. Rolling in high at number 9, we have Nicholas Romanov, $300 billion. The 9th wealthiest person in existence didn't want the title or responsibility of being a Russian Tsar. Nicholas Tsar, born May 18th, 1868, was famously quoted saying, "I am not prepared to be a star. I never wanted to be one. I know nothing of the business in ruling." His main goal was to maintain Russia's status quo. In the end, he became Russia's last Tsar and known as Bloody Nicholas due to the myriad of disasters and massacres and the number of people who died in his rule. Still, he certainly made use of his wealth. And competency as a leader aside, he retained an annual salary of a whopping 200,000 rubles, 40 times more than what the average worker received. This astronomical amount of money went to indulge his lavish lifestyle and expensive demands such as custom-made clothes and military uniforms, which alone were worth 20,000 rubles. Gucci and Louis just can't compare. Next up, with $310 billion, Andrew Carnegie. At one point, Andrew Carnegie's fortune was worth 2.1% of the U.S. GDP. A long way from working in a cotton mill as a teenager and as a telegrapher, Carnegie went on to invest in railroads, sleeping cars, oil derricks, and bridges. Using that money, as well as the wealth he had attained as a bond salesman, he was able to establish the Carnegie Steel Company. This is the same company that he would later sell to J.P. Morgan for a staggering $480 million in 1901. Officially making him richer than America's previous richest man, whoever that was. With all that wealth in his control, Carnegie was nothing like Tsar Nicholas we just spoke about. During the last 18 years of his life, he gave away more than $350 million to charity, about $5.2 billion in today's money. That's about 90% of his fortune. His contributions established numerous schools, nonprofit organizations, colleges, and supported thousands of church organs around the world. His motto, as he wrote in his book, The Gospel of Wealth, was, "The man who dies thus rich dies disgraced." What a guy. For the lucky 7, we have Jacob Fugger, $400 billion. With a last name like Fugger, there is no way this man didn't struggle in life. Surprisingly, it's also that name that gave him a leg up when it came to accumulating an insane fortune. Jacob Fugger was also known as Jacob the Rich. Born on March 6, 1459, he eventually became a major German merchant, banker, and mining entrepreneur. His wealth gave him enough power to influence politics and entire regimes. His family was already wealthy, their fortune created by textile trade with Italy. But with Jacob at the head of the family, he made sure the Fuggers had a nearly monopolistic hold on the copper market in Europe. He single-handedly financed Maximilian I's rise to power, as well as funded Spanish King Charles I's campaign to become Holy Roman Emperor Charles V and rule an empire as large as Napoleon's was. When he wasn't changing history and being the richest man in the world, he, in the 1500s, built himself an imposing 4-story home in the center of Augsburg. This home, dubbed the Fugger House, had fireplaces, ovens, and water fountains in every room. When he died in 1525, he left his money-making company to his nephews and bequeathed them with assets worth 2,332,652 guilders. What better is there to pass on down? You've probably heard this one. Up next, we have John D. Rockefeller, $350 to $420 billion. John D. Rockefeller is thought to be the richest American to ever live, with over $400 billion and 2% of the U.S. GDP. Even after his death, members of the Rockefeller family remain some of the wealthiest people in U.S. history. America's first billionaire was notoriously hard to get along with, but he was a workaholic to the bone. After making an absurd, never-seen-before fortune, he gave most of it away. Rockefeller's journey into becoming a wealthy business magnate started with a $4,000 investment in a Cleveland oil refinery. This investment was what made him start the Standard Oil Company. And just in the nick of time, gasoline and kerosene prices grew in importance and price. Rockefeller's wealth along with them, as he controlled a whopping 90% of all oil in the U.S. A court ruling dubbed his monopolistic hold over the market illegal and broke up his company into parts, which skyrocketed Rockefeller's wealth even more. The sum of the individual parts was worth more than the whole company, even doubling and tripling in value later. Throughout his life, all 97 years of it, it's estimated that he gave away more than $540 million. Forget about the billions, it's time to move to the trillions. At number 5, we have Augustus Caesar, who's sitting at $4.6 trillion. When you think of wealthy Roman emperors, the name Augustus Caesar, born Octavius, isn't the first name to come to mind. But it should, considering that he personally owned all of Egypt at one point. That means Augustus had a wealth of more than a staggering $4.6 trillion. Augustus hailed as the first Roman emperor and the founder of the Roman Principate. During his reign, which lasted from 27 BC to his death in AD 15, the Roman Empire stretched across Egypt, Dalmatia, Noricum, Rhaetia, Pannotia, and more. He also finished the conquest of Hispania. Annexing that much land earned him trillions. It's believed that he personally owned a fifth of the wealth of what an empire had and controlled 30% of the GDP of the whole world. This name might sound familiar. At number 4, we have Akbar the First, $21 trillion. Akbar the First, known as Akbar the Great, was the third Mughal emperor. During his reign from 1556 to 1605, his empire thrived, conquering hundreds of thousands of square miles and spanning most of the Indian subcontinent. His wealth is nearly unmeasurable, with some throwing out mind-boggling numbers such as $21 trillion. At the time, Akbar controlled around an eyebrow-raising 25% of the world's GDP. Despite his notorious lavish lifestyle, Mughal India had a strong and stable economy during his rule, but his extravagant behavior warranted a lot of scrutiny. He reportedly kept thousands of cheetahs during his reign and trained many himself. Only the Romanovs of Russia and the wealthy nobles of France's luxurious lifestyle rivaled the way Akbar indulged in some of this empire's wealth. He just knows how to party. 3 more to go. I know you just can't wait till number 1. I can't either. At number 3, we have Shenzong of Song, estimated at $30 trillion. Also worth trillions of dollars and controlling 30% of the world is Emperor Shenzong of China. He was the 6th emperor of the Song dynasty. While Augustus Caesar controlled a big chunk of the world GDP in AD 14, Shenzong, born Zhuzhu, did so during his reign from 1067 to 1085, making him a strong contender for the battle of the wealthiest man to ever live. His family was already considered to be rich, but the wealth didn't reach absurd amounts until Shenzong took over. It was just his luck that the production of rice, gunpowder, printing, and magnet compass skyrocketed. Shenzong is responsible for forming the world's first navy and creating the world's first paper money. How much Shenzong was worth is impossible to pinpoint, but it's well in trillions and somewhere over $30 trillion. It's hard to believe that he comes in at number 2 and not number 1. We have the fearsome Genghis Khan, over $100 trillion. The fearsome Mongol leader, who was famously quoted saying, "I'm the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." His wealth wasn't built on textile trade with Italy or building railroads. No. The great Khan earned his fortune by brutally conquering 12 million square miles of land between the year 1206 and his death in 1227. There's a reason why he's considered the greatest conqueror of all time. His empire spanned most of Eurasia, reaching all the way to Poland in Europe and the Levant in the Middle East. To this day, Genghis Khan's wealth is immeasurable, and due to the insane amount of land and riches he gathered with every nation he squashed, but it's believed he was worth over $100 trillion. Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. You've earned it if you sat through it. I know you've been waiting for it. A name I've never heard of, and a name you probably never heard of either. At number 1, we have Mansa Musa, amount unmeasurable. The wealthiest person of all time wasn't any of the famous conquerors and rulers you're familiar with. If you ever saw a Catalan atlas from 1375, then you may have noticed an African king sitting on a golden throne atop Timbuktu holding a piece of gold. This is Mansa Musa, whose fortune alone brought down an entire city's economy for 12 years. It's said that he was richer than anyone could describe. He was born in 1280, and he ascended to the throne in 1312 and ruled for 25 years. It's during this time that the kingdom of Mali dramatically expanded. All 24 cities surrounding him were annexed until Mansa Musa had about 2,000 miles under his control, stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to where Niger is today. That means he ruled over Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, the Ivory Coast, Mauritania, and more. The Empire of Mali controlled nearly half of the old world's gold. Perhaps the most notable way Mansa Musa showed the extent of his wealth was during one unforgettable pilgrimage to Mecca. As he traveled, he brought a caravan of 60,000 men, His entourage included the entire royal court, officials, soldiers, merchants, camel drivers, griots, also known as entertainers, and 12,000 slaves. Each of the camels accompanying them carried bags with hundreds of pounds of pure gold inside. Even the slaves wore gold brocade and Persian silk. During this journey, Mansa Musa made his way to Cairo and stayed for an economy reckoned 3 months. He freely gave away gold to anyone he met, causing gold prices to drastically go down for over a decade. It's believed that this iconic pilgrimage led to about $1.5 billion of economic losses across the Middle East. And that's a wrap on the top 10 wealthiest people throughout history. What do you think of these people and their mind-blowing fortunes? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. If you didn't enjoy it, hit it anyways. You might just become a billionaire or a trillionaire. If you want to see more content from us, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Thanks for watching.